My name is Carlos Rodriguez, and I'm sitting in my truck outside Home Depot at 5:30 a.m. before another 12-hour construction shift, staring at my bank account balance on my phone and trying to figure out how I'm going to cover my mother's chemotherapy treatment in Guadalajara, my mortgage payment in Phoenix, my daughter's orthodontist bill, and groceries for this week, with the $847 that represents everything left after sending my latest remittance to Mexico. At 33, I'm a successful construction manager, making $75,000 a year, own a house in a decent neighborhood, and should be building well for my family's American future. Instead, I'm drowning in the impossible mathematics of supporting two families in two countries, stretching every dollar between the life I build in Arizona and the obligations I carry for relatives in Mexico who depend on my American salary for their basic survival. I immigrated to Phoenix 15 years ago when I was 18, crossing the border with my Uncle Miguel, who had promised my parents that he could find me construction work that would allow me to send money home while building a better life than what was possible in our small town outside Guadalajara. My father, Roberto, was a mechanic who could barely earn enough to feed our family of six, and my mother, Maria, cleaned houses for wealthy families when her health allowed, but their combined income wasn't sufficient to cover basic necessities, let alone medical expenses, education costs, or emergencies that regularly threatened to destroy our family's financial stability. The plan was simple in concept but brutal in execution. I would work construction in America, live as cheaply as possible, and send most of my earnings back to Mexico to support my parents, three younger siblings, and my aging grandmother who live with our family and require expensive medication for diabetes and heart problems. Uncle Miguel had convinced my parents that American construction wages were so much higher than Mexican salaries that I could support both my own basic needs in Phoenix and my family's needs in Mexico while saving money for eventual legal immigration or business opportunities. The early years were exactly as difficult as promised, but seemed manageable because my living expenses were minimal and my earning potential was growing. As I learned construction skills and improved my English, I shared a cramped apartment with 5 other Mexican workers, ate simple meals, avoided unnecessary expenses, and sent home between $800 and $1,200 every month depending on available overtime work and seasonal construction demand. The money I sent represented more than triple my father's monthly income as a mechanic, allowing my family to move to better housing, send my siblings to school, and afford medical care that had been financially impossible before my immigration. But as years passed and I established legal residency, married my wife Elena, and started my own family in Phoenix, the financial obligations expanded in both countries without any decrease in expectations or needs from Mexico. Elena and I have 2 children, Sophia, who is 8, and Diego, who is 5, and we want to provide them with educational opportunities, extracurricular activities, and middle-class American experiences that require substantial financial investment. Simultaneously, my family in Mexico has come to depend on my remittances not just for basic needs, but for emergencies, medical expenses, and opportunities like my youngest brother's university tuition that wouldn't be possible without my American income. The crisis intensified 3 years ago when my mother was diagnosed with breast cancer and began requiring expensive medical treatment that Mexican public health care couldn't provide adequately. The oncology care, chemotherapy drugs, and supportive treatments she needed cost more than $2,000 per month. Money that had to come from my Phoenix construction salary because no one else in our family had access to those resources. At the same time, Elena was pregnant with Diego. Our Phoenix mortgage payment increased due to property tax reassessment, and Sophia started having learning difficulties that required private tutoring we couldn't afford but couldn't ignore. The impossible mathematics became clear when I calculated that my family obligations required approximately $4,500 per month, $1,800 for mortgage, utilities, and basic Phoenix expenses, $2,000 for my mother's cancer treatment, $400 for regular support to my father and siblings, and $300 for my grandmother's medications and care. My construction manager salary, even with overtime, generated about $4,200 per month after taxes, leaving me $300 short every month before accounting for food, clothing, transportation, children's needs, or any emergency expenses that regularly arose in both countries. The financial pressure created a constant state of crisis management, where every expenditure, required careful consideration and difficult choices about competing needs. When Diego needed emergency room treatment for a severe asthma attack, the $1,200 hospital bill meant I couldn't send my mother's full chemotherapy payment that month. When my father's truck broke down and he couldn't work without transportation, the $800 repair cost meant Elena and I couldn't afford Sophia's school supplies and had to ask for payment plans from her teachers. Credit card became a temporary solution that created long-term problems as I used borrowed money to bridge gaps between income and obligations in both countries. Within 2 years, I had accumulated $15,000 in credit card debt with interest payments that consumed another $300 per month, making the financial situation even more impossible. The debt created shame and secrecy because Elena didn't know the full extent of our financial problems, and my family in Mexico couldn't understand why someone earning an American salary was struggling to meet their needs. The psychological toll was devastating as I carried responsibility for economic decisions that affected multiple families across 2 countries. If I reduced remittances to Mexico, my mother's cancer treatment would be compromised and my family would face immediate hardship that could be life-threatening. If I reduced expenses in Phoenix, my own children would lose educational opportunities and stability that represented the entire purpose of my immigration sacrifice. Every financial choice felt like choosing between the survival of one family or the success of another. The breaking point came when my construction company lost a major contract, and I was laid off for 6 weeks during the winter slow season. The unemployment benefits covered only a fraction of our Phoenix expenses, and nothing for Mexico obligations, forcing me to use credit cards for both families' needs while desperately searching for temporary work that could bridge the gap until construction season resumed. Elena discovered the full extent of our debt when credit card companies started calling our house, leading to the most difficult conversation of our marriage about financial secrets and impossible choices. That conversation was both devastating and liberating because it forced me to explain the full scope of financial pressures that had been consuming my mental health and threatening our marriage. Elena was initially angry about the secrecy and debt, but she gradually understood the impossible position I was in as the only person in either family with sufficient income to address everyone's needs. We realized that the financial system I had created was unsustainable and required fundamental changes that would be painful for everyone involved. The solution process began with consulting Maria Santos, a financial counselor who specialized in working with immigrant families managing cross-border financial obligations. She helped us understand that my situation wasn't unique and that many successful immigrants struggle with similar challenges of supporting multiple families while building wealth in America. You can't pour from an empty cup indefinitely, she explained. If you don't create financial sustainability for your Phoenix family, you won't be able to help anyone long-term. Working with Maria, we developed a comprehensive budget that allocated specific amounts for Mexico obligations while protecting our Phoenix family's basic needs and beginning to address the credit card debt that was growing uncontrollably. The plan required difficult conversations with my family in Mexico about realistic expectations for financial support and alternative strategies for addressing some of their needs without depending entirely on my remittances. The hardest conversation was with my mother about reducing her chemotherapy support from $2,000 to $1,200 per month, requiring her to access Mexican government healthcare programs and charitable organizations that could supplement the private treatment I was funding. She was initially devastated and frightened about receiving lower quality care, but we researched options together and found that Mexican public oncology programs had improved significantly and could provide adequate treatment with some private supplementation rather than requiring fully private care. I also had conversations with my father and siblings about sharing more responsibility for family expenses rather than depending entirely on my American income for all needs beyond basic survival. My brother Luis, who had completed university with my financial support, had found steady employment and could contribute to my grandmother's medication costs. My sister Carmen could help more with my mother's daily care, reducing the need for paid assistance that I had been funding from Phoenix. The financial restructuring required temporary sacrifices from both families, but created a more sustainable system that could continue long-term without destroying my Phoenix family stability or my mental health. Elena and I eliminated unnecessary expenses, consolidated our debt through a home equity loan with lower interest rates, and created emergency funds for both countries that could handle medical crises or income disruptions without requiring credit card debt. I also pursued additional income opportunities by starting a small home improvement business on weekends, using my construction skills to generate extra money specifically designated for Mexico obligations and debt reduction. Elena returned to work part-time as a medical office assistant, contributing income that helped stabilize our Phoenix budget while allowing us to maintain a reduced but still significant financial support for my family in Mexico. The business development created new opportunities for involving my family in Mexico in income-generating activities rather than just receiving remittances. Using my construction knowledge and contacts, I helped my father establish a small building repair business in Guadalajara that could generate additional income for the family while utilizing skills he already possessed. The business required initial capital investment from my Phoenix savings, but it created ongoing income that reduced their dependence on my monthly remittances. The children's education planning required careful balance between American opportunities and financial reality, leading us to prioritize public school excellence over private school costs while still investing in tutoring and activities that supported Sofia and Diego's academic development. We moved to a neighborhood with better public schools rather than paying private school tuition, and we focused extracurricular spending on activities that provided the greatest educational value rather than trying to match the spending of families without cross-border financial obligations. The immigration planning discussions with Elena involved exploring pathways for bringing some family members to America legally, which could reduce remittance obligations while reuniting families and creating new income sources. We began the process of petitioning for my parents' legal residency, understanding that the timeline would be long, but that eventual family reunification could solve some of the financial challenges created by supporting relatives across borders. The insurance planning became crucial for protecting both families from medical emergencies that could destroy our financial stability. I increased my health insurance coverage to protect my Phoenix family from catastrophic medical expenses, while also purchasing supplemental health insurance for my parents in Mexico that could cover emergency treatments without requiring large remittances during medical crises. Today, I work as construction manager while running my weekend home improvement business, generating combined income of approximately $95,000 per year that allows more comfortable support for both families. The financial system we develop allocates $1,000 per month for Mexico support, $600 for debt reduction, and maintains emergency funds for both countries while still allowing investment in my children's education and our family's American future. The experience taught me that financial obligations to family abroad require the same careful planning and boundary setting as any other major financial commitment, and that sustainable support systems serve families better than unsustainable sacrifice that eventually fails. Many immigrants struggle with similar challenges of supporting multiple families while building wealth in America, and the shame around financial difficulties often prevents people from seeking help or developing realistic strategies for managing cross-border obligations. Key resources and solutions that made the difference. Financial counseling services specializing in immigrant families provide guidance on managing cross-border financial obligations while building wealth in America and creating sustainable support systems. Credit counseling and debt consolidation services help immigrants manage credit card debt accumulated while supporting families abroad, providing strategies for debt reduction that don't compromise family obligations. Remittance services and banking products designed for cross-border money transfers can reduce fees and provide better exchange rates for families regularly sending money to relatives abroad. Small business development programs for immigrants provide opportunities to generate additional income that can support family obligations while building wealth and economic independence. Insurance planning services help immigrant families protect against medical emergencies and other catastrophic expenses that could destroy financial stability in either country. Immigration legal services can provide guidance on family reunification options that might reduce long-term remittance obligations while bringing families together. Financial literacy programs specifically designed for immigrant communities address unique challenges of managing money across borders while building wealth in America. Community organizations and religious institutions often provide emergency financial assistance and resource connections for immigrant families facing temporary financial crises. Today, When I meet other immigrants who are struggling with financial burdens of supporting families in multiple countries, I tell them that sustainable help serves everyone better than unsustainable sacrifice. You can't support your family abroad if you destroy your financial stability in America, and you can't build wealth for your children's future if you don't establish boundaries around family obligations. The goal is creating systems that provide meaningful support while protecting your ability to continue helping long-term. Financial planning and boundary setting aren't selfish. They're necessary for serving your family effectively across borders and generations.